I like it, but this is one of probably the hottest seats in professional sports, considering all they gave away last year to get PG, having Kawhi. This is a very hot seat, so I'm hoping he's going into this situation surrounding himself with very quality assistant coaches. I hope my man Chauncey Billups, big shot, gets a chance to be possibly his lead assistant. But this is a very hot seat. The one thing I'll say about T. Lue is he's a very good communicator, so this is something that team is going to need, and I wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, Matt, it's a hot seat, but it's a hot seat because that roster is stacked. And it's so, from that standpoint, it's a really good job. It's an opportunity for Ty Lue to walk in and take a team across the finish line, a team that is, by most people's accounts, is ready to cross the finish line. And here's the reality. I think someone coming from outside probably wouldn't have understood the internal dynamics of why the Clippers failed. The Clippers failed for reasons other than not enough talent. And so, with Ty having been there a year and knowing the guys and knowing the personalities, I think he's the right guy for the job to steer them because he knows what the problems are and he can address them as such as the head coach.
It is interesting that this is now going to be the second time Ty has done this, getting the head coach spot of a team that he was a primary assistant on because the team and the ownership decided that the guy in the head job, they needed to get him in a different place. So, Matt, what do you think of that progression? Just the idea that, okay, here's a guy who was in all the meetings, was in all the planning, was part of all those relationships, and now how much different do you think he's going to make things? He had obviously worked in Cleveland.
I think Amin hit it on the head. I mean, he's very familiar with that. Obviously, first and foremost with the organization. He was there back when Doc first came with the Lob City team that I was there on, and then he comes back as Doc's lead assistant this year. So there's a lot of familiarity there. How much different is he than Doc? I mean, Doc has pretty much raised this guy as far as in the coaching ranks and given him some pretty quality opportunities and spoken on his behalf for him to get other jobs. So, like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see what he brings to the table because, like I said, it's not a lack of talent. It's just a lack of something else going on in that locker room that needs to be straightened out. So hopefully Ty's the guy that can straighten it out.
And you know what? Sometimes, Rachel, it's weird. Sometimes you need to hear the same message from a different voice. We see it all the time. It's not necessarily that Doc was doing the wrong things or coaching the wrong way. It's just sometimes he's been there so long, guys start to tune him out. And so having a different voice, communicate the same thing, maybe in a slightly different fashion, can help. So even though Ty Lue, yes, he was part of the planning. Yes, he was in those coaches' meetings. And maybe his ideas aren't that drastically different from Doc's. But communicating it in a new voice in perhaps a different way sometimes gets the message across.
Well, he's such a smart coach, and his relationships with players are always so good. He will definitely be a new voice because he's a lot less raspy. But no, I think that I'm really looking forward to seeing how they can go from here because that franchise and that roster has so much potential. And if you're an NBA fan, seeing great players do great things is something you should get excited about. I do want to hop over to Houston. What is your reaction, Amin, to Daryl Morey stepping down?
I'm not surprised. I kind of knew when he did the deal back earlier in the season to get Russell Westbrook. This was a swing for the fences deal. This was if I'm right, I'm a king. And if I'm wrong, things are probably going to get more pressure packed. And I know Adrian talked about how this was Daryl's decision and Daryl stepped away and Tillman didn't pressure him. He also mentioned that Tillman didn't fight for him either. And I'm going to address the elephant in the room. If you're going to be the general manager who cost me millions of dollars, you better be delivering a championship. You can't be the general manager who cost me millions of dollars and underachieves with the rosters that we have year in and year out. And so at some point, whatever sway, whatever power, whatever pull Daryl has starts to wane. And at that moment, I think Daryl realizes, do I want to be a part of this if my voice isn't as strong as it needs to be?
I think it's interesting. Normally when someone steps down, it's just a way of, avoiding the word fired.
Right.
Whether Daryl Morey went to them or I know it was definitely in the cards. And like Amin said, there's a history to this, obviously, with everything that happened in China this year. His last 13 years, he built something, but I think they've kind of reached the ceiling with his strategy and his way of thinking. Analytics has changed the game, and it's definitely benefited Houston. That they've had some great teams, and James Harden is arguably the best player as far as offensive talent in the game. But they really haven't got over that hump yet. So it's time to go in a new direction. They need a good head coach, and they got to restructure this roster a little bit, because this is built for D'Antoni and Daryl Morey type basketball. Neither of those guys are there anymore.
Well, I do buy the idea that he went to Fertitta and that this was the start of his idea, only in that this wasn't just a trying year for the Rockets. It was a pretty trying year for Daryl Morey, too, right? It's not like that whole experience wasn't, it cost him a lot, too. And I think that there can definitely be a thing where it's just best for everyone to say, you know what, I'm going to step away for a minute. I was very interested in Woj's report, the idea that he's not even going to be in basketball and look for another basketball job for maybe at least another year. Daryl is just such a part of the fabric of the game and the way he's changed the approach of the game, especially from the front office. It's going to be weird to me, frankly, not to have a Daryl Morey type of team for everybody to sort of measure against in the league in terms of approach and design and style. But we won't, I guess. And I am impressed with all the changes that he made to the game over the last 10 years. I mean, what do you think his legacy sort of as a general manager is? And not that he's done working in the NBA, but for now as he steps away.
Right. It's, in many ways, it's like Mike D'Antoni's. You can have an influence and an impact on the way people look at the game, and yet not you yourself became ultimately successful. Regardless of whether you like Mike or you don't like Mike, you look around the NBA, you see the emphasis on pick and roll, spread offense, and a lot of three-pointers. That's Mike D'Antoni. So what the Lakers did, what the Heat did, a lot of that is Mike D'Antoni. Same thing with Daryl Morey. The way he built teams, the way he mined for teams, mined for talent. He's underrated at his ability to get value out of kind of not the most obvious places. And so I think in that sense, he's going to influence a lot of people moving forward.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.